Coffee is a big part of my day. Not only does it help me get through the morning, but I just really love good coffee. Trade is a subscription service that brings great coffee from indie roasters all over the country right to your door. Tell Trade what you like typically. Single origins, blends, dark or light roasts, or even how you make your coffee, and they'll recommend the right beans for you. Or you can choose from over 450 different coffees and build your own queue. Then you select how often you'd like your coffee delivered, whether that be 7 days, 10 days, 14 days. Shipping's always free. If you find that you have too many beans and you need to skip a delivery, you can do that. Running out sooner than you think and need an order sooner, you can do that as well. No charge. I've done it myself a couple times. It's great to know that I have that flexibility. Go to unitedwedrink.com/trade and get started with Trade and enjoy 30% off your first month. That's unitedwedrink.com/trade. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another new episode of the United We Drink podcast right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mikey Revich. I'm here alone for this intro because we have a guest. Yes, we do. A person who I feel like should have been on this show way earlier. I don't exactly know why, probably because I didn't think of it. Tim thought of this and got all of this set up. So thank you, Tim. We're joined today by Neil Witte, who is possibly the godfather of draft beer in the craft beer industry. He spent close to 20 years working with Boulevard and Duvel when Duvel purchased them, doing draft quality and education around the country. He wrote the draft beer quality manual, co-authored it, that was put out by the Brewers Association a number of years ago. He owns his own company called Craft Quality Solutions, where he does draft system design and installations. And he's also the lead trainer for the Cicerone Certification Program. Like, this guy knows what he's talking about when it comes to draft beer. So instead of me just, putting his name up in lights here for you, let's get into our conversation with Neil Witte. And he just listens and observes and records us and gives it all to the NSA.
The all-knowing bear.
Yes. And then since it's the NSA, that means we're in deep trouble in a few months when the things change over.
Yeah. And they come to get us all.
Oh yeah, no, I've got text exchanges with friends where, like, every once in a while, like every 2 months, one of us has to be like, hey, by the way, anyone who might be monitoring these texts, we are joking.
I don't think that's going to save you. I'm just putting that out there.
Well,
you know what? I think I heard before that it's just like when you say, hey, if you're a cop, you have to tell me.
Yeah.
I think it works exactly the same way.
Or if you say no offense before you say anything, then they can't take offense to it.
Yeah.
No offense, you're the ugliest man I've ever seen. Yeah.
Is that like when somebody says, I'm not a racist, and then everything they say after that is a racist statement?
I think this should be the show. We just keep saying all these things that equate to one another and why everything is horrible.
Oh my goodness.
So, Neil, what are you drinking? Because you have the big fancy bowl there. I never remember the correct pronunciation of that glass. The
this is the Tubinger.
Tubinger.
Yeah, I believe that's correct pronunciation. I studied German in college. That was many years ago, though. I am drinking Ancient Trade from Alma Mater Brewing here in Kansas City. They're right down the street from where I live. I'm very good friends with the owners there, Nick and Tanya Mater, and they are making really, truly fantastic beers. This is a Vienna lager. They do really great lagers. They do really great IPAs. Their Pacific Portal just took second place at GABF in West Coast IPA, second largest category. So they're starting to collect some hardware and kicking ass.
I've seen a few people from the area like really, really happy. I think Danner has talked highly about them
Wouldn't
before,
surprise me.
and Katie from KC Beer, I think, has talked highly of them.
I see Katie at that brewery all the time. Yeah.
Okay.
She and her partner Colin are there pretty regularly.
Tim, what are you having?
Right now, I am drinking a Summit Saga Hazy. So, Summit came out with the greatest West Coast IPA to get released in the Twin Cities, I don't know, like 2-3 years ago. And then they decided to do what we've talked about on this podcast before is brand extension. And so now they have a Saga variety pack. So it's Summit Saga IPA. So I went out and got it. So it's Summit Saga Hazy, Summit Saga Juicy, and Summit Saga Imperial. And you really have to be careful because this is the Summit Saga can. It's great. Yeah, I'm using visuals for an audio medium. And this is the hazy. Do you see how they're basically the same color? They're the same can?
Depending on your camera, that they would look very similar.
Yeah, but also that said, I don't know if you blindfolded me that I could tell you the difference between Saga Hazy, and Saga Juicy. All great beers, but I don't particularly find the Juicy to be of an extra juicy variety or the hazy to be of an extra hazy variety. But I thought, hey, you know what? I'll give it a try. I'd only have the Saga and the Saga Hazy. We'll see if I get into the Imperial as the night goes on.
But do they have a cartoon or somehow fun character that kind of pulls all of the different brand extensions together? A la Voodoo Ranger. I mean, that's like obviously one of the biggest successful stories in craft beer in recent years, and of course everybody's going to try and duplicate that.
I mean, if you're barking right up Mike's alley to mix my idioms.
I am a very non-apologetic Voodoo Ranger fan from many of the beers to just the brand.
I mean,
direction.
why would anybody have anything bad to say about it? The beer is amazing. The branding's on point. I mean, they're absolutely killing it. I mean, what's wrong with that?
I think they just some reporting I saw recently said this was like the first time that they were actually down on sales recently, where they were for a while like one of the only big craft brands that seemed to be going up.
Yeah, so Tim, does it have that kind of connective character there?
Well, they all have the goddess Saga on there, which is a goddess of, I don't know, probably something Nordic. This is Minnesota. I don't remember, but they're all on that can, so they all look the same. They all do that. I don't know if how far they'll carry this extension out. I honestly think they could have just gone off the top of off the fermenter, off the bright, and I wouldn't know the difference. But
goddess of prophecy and wisdom in Norse.
So it is Norse. Okay.
Yeah.
Goddess of prophecy and wisdom. Yeah. So they do have that. It's not necessarily cartoony, but it is. I mean, it's a classy looking can, and it's been, like I said, I think it's the best IPA to come out of the Twin Cities as a new one and a staple. I'll get this thing anytime.
Well, again, a brewery that knows what it's doing there.
They do.
I also want to send out some unsolicited advice to them for their summer variety pack for Summit Summer Saga IPA.
Summer Saga?
Summer Saga.
Yeah, I like that.
Kevin, what about you?
I am drinking Penn's Oktoberfest right now, and I've got a Guinness. Is it an export or a foreign stout here as well? I'm sorry, a Guinness Extra Stout. That's what I'm backing that up with. I'm a big fan of the Penn Oktoberfest. I did it for Old Favorite Friday a couple weeks back, and it's a beer that I hadn't had in a long time, and it's just really, really nice. It has kind of a vibe between kind of a fest beer and a Marzen, in my opinion. If you kind of look at the color, yeah. Once again, we continue to do visual stuff on an audio medium, but it's kind of a little bit lighter in color, has some malt forward aspects to it, but still brings a little more hop presence. And a brewery that I forget about all the time that still makes, in my opinion, really good beer. I don't know how you feel about them, Mike, from being a Philadelphia guy, but I like their stuff.
I mean, they're a Pittsburgh brewery, so wrong side of the state. But
you're a Pennsylvania guy, dude. You live in the state. That's like saying, like, oh, I'm a Miami guy, not a talking Tampa guy.
I haven't had anything from them in quite a while, but I do remember like their lagers were just always pretty solid. I'm fairly certain I've had the Oktoberfest before, but like their Vienna lager, I think is like one of their top beers, and I think like the diner down the street, Howley's, has their Vienna available in bottles there.
Also, I would argue, Kevin, that that's not the difference between Miami and Tampa. That's the difference between Miami and Tallahassee, which I would wager to say belong in two different states, possibly countries.
And the distance between them is like some states, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then I stand corrected, and I'll just shut up the rest of the podcast. I'm sorry, guys. I apologize.
Good. No, that's kind of what I was hoping for, honestly.
Yeah, I figured.
Besides, I am the resident expert on all things Florida, as we discussed earlier.
Well, you've got some explaining to do.
Yeah, if you want to be the spokesman and actually describe what the hell goes on in this state, Mike and I will concede that to you every day of the week.
Oh, yeah, I would actually love to hear someone from not from here try to explain what is going on here. Like that, it would be, I think, be entertaining at best.
You guys have to remember that I drink a lot and do enjoy weed, so I'm sure if you give me the right level of drunken high, I could explain it very eloquently, and I probably wouldn't actually be that far off of the truth.
It's like a drunk history episode kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
What was it from the Good Place? The guy who did shrooms and then figured out like 99% of the afterlife.
Yeah, it was
like
Michael McKean played him.
Yeah,
Michael McKean played him. Mike, I will move on to you. What are you drinking this evening?
I don't remember what the name of the beer is because it doesn't have a label on it, but it is from our friend Spencer from Scepter Brewing Arts in Decatur, Georgia, that he sent us a couple months ago. It's a table beer that is like just fantastic, dry and a little bit of tartness, and I'll probably be done it in like 5 minutes because it goes down so easy.
I think I remember that one. That was really tasty.
Yeah.
All the stuff that he sent us was really tasty, by the way, but just have to throw that out
there. So, Neil, thank you for being here. So, why don't you tell us just a little bit of a, like, abbreviated thing about your journey? Because you were at Boulevard. Was that your first like foray into beer?
No, that was my longest, to be sure.
Okay.
I'm a Missouri boy, live in Kansas City, went to Mizzou, and graduated college, spent my last semester, or getting my last credits, the summer after my last semester in Germany. And this was, I'm going to date myself now, this was 1993. And I traveled around a little bit with the rail pass and drank some really great beers, spending a summer abroad. And came home and wasn't really finding a lot of the same beers, and just got the idea that I was going to start making beer at home. And there was a little homebrew shop, and I bought some stuff, and that's kind of how I got into it, and brewed for a couple of years. I was working as a bartender, graduated college with a degree in philosophy and German, and not a whole lot of direction. And then I got on at a winery right outside of Columbia, where a friend of mine was the winemaker. He knew that I was into beer and thought I might be interested in working on the bottling line and doing some cellar work and working at the bar there. So I spent a few years there, and then through them I got connected with a company here in Kansas City called Casey Hops that owned a couple of different brew pubs at the time. One was one of the first ones here in Kansas City called 75th Street Brewery, and they were opening a new place called McCoy's Public House, and I got hired to be the assistant brewer at McCoy's Public House. So I moved here and worked there, helped to open the place up, and then they got open, and it turned out they didn't really need an assistant brewer after all. And so I bounced around in their company for a few months, and after about probably like 8 months in that company, I got a job at Boulevard as a brewer, and I was there for 19 years. I spent the first 3 years as a brewer, and then I transitioned into a new role they created, doing field quality out in the market. So I started working with our sales team in the Midwest and our distributor network and retailers and all the things that come up with the beer out in the marketplace. There's a million different ways that beer can go bad once you send it out the door. And so that was kind of my responsibility. So I spent a long time working with line cleaners and draft techs and sales reps and anybody who's handling or doing anything with beer. And over the years, it kind of evolved into like an educational role as well. So I was, because if you're going to go into a bar, especially in like, the early 2000s, and you're going to talk to a bartender about how to pour beer the right way, you better kind of come with a little bit of knowledge about why that actually matters. And so, I spent a long time kind of explaining beer to people and then explaining why, beer needed to be handled a certain way so they could preserve certain flavors and prevent the development of other flavors and that type of thing. So I was there through the acquisition by Duvel. So I worked with the larger company for about, I want to say it was probably 3 to 4 years after the acquisition. So I was working with then Brewery Omegang and Boulevard and all the imported beers, Duvel, Shootin, Leafman's, a few other smaller brands. And then I left in 2017. I just had decided it was time. There wasn't any big event, left on great terms. I still have a lot of friends there. They still hire me to do things. And started my own business. I had like one idea of what I was going to do, and it kind of turned into another thing. And so, and it's, right now my business is not really the only thing I do. It's a big part of what I do, but a lot of what I do now is I work with the Cicerone Certification Program. When I left Boulevard, I took on like a half-time role with them, doing content development and training and stuff like that. And that's increased a little bit. I'm not quite full-time with them. So I do exam management now and a little bit of everything because Cicerone's a small company. And my business, I do consulting, I do draft system design and installation, mostly small boutique stuff for, breweries, bars, restaurants, mostly local. And I kind of whatever falls in my lap, honestly. And I've been doing that since 2017. So, I'm constantly poking around trying to, test new things out, see what the, see what might be interesting. I have some interesting things I'm working on right now, but it's been fun. It's you kind of wake up one day and realize you've been working in a business for it's been 27 years now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's got crazy.
You're essentially like a freelance brewery guy at this point, like working for yourself, picking the jobs really that you want to do.
Yeah,
That's kind of a
to a large degree. The Cicerone work is, that's a regular steady W-2 job. But it's, there's a lot of flexibility there, and, it's remote work, and since it's not full time, does allow me to peel away and take on other projects and do some of the things that I think are fun and can make me a little bit of side money. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I work for myself, although I do technically have a couple of bosses now.
Funny.
Yeah,
actually.
McCoy's that was Westport, right?
Yeah, that was in
Okay.
Westport, and they were open for. They were probably open for, I don't know, 25 years, something like that. They were open.
So because they opened up a location up here in Minneapolis too, but I had been to the Westport one before they opened up here, and then
That's right.
Yeah, and the one here closed after the one there closed.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they had been around for quite a while.
Yeah. They had a nice long run here in Kansas City. It, and you know how it is with a lot of those kind of first gen 90s era brew pubs. They're of a certain generation, and there's still some really great ones out there still kicking it and making great beer and good food, but not a lot of them have hung around for that long. I mean, we've got a couple more that are closing really soon. I think Revolution, I don't know if that really counts as like the 90s era brew pub in Chicago, but it kind of feels like it when you walk in. It's that kind of old school brew pub feel. The other one I'm thinking of is Cambridge in
in Cambridge,
Boston.
Mass.
Cambridge. Yeah, Cambridge and Cambridge. Yeah, that's like a legit, like old school 90s era brew pub. And Will Meyer's been freaking killing it there for years and years, making great beer. A lot of like really great, somewhat legendary brewers have come out of that brew pub. So that it's, that's closing, I think, later this month or early next month after a really long run. So yeah, there's just not a lot of those around anymore. And McCoy's was one of those. And, when it closed, it was, it had a great run, but it, I think a lot of people felt like, yeah, it's kind of run its course in its time.
I always think about Iron Hill from the Philly area. Like they still seem very brew pub oriented. They've modernized making some of those the hipper beers, but I mean, you still go in and they have, it's like a porter, a red ale, a pale ale, that type of stuff. And I remember they had for a long period of time, like I think it was like a 20-year streak of winning medals at GABF that only like ended a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I mean, that place is legendary.
Well, and for McCoy, I mean, Westport has changed so much over the years.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, they were Westport before Westport was Westport, basically. And so, yeah, that the fact they weathered the changing clientele and the changing businesses around them and all of the kind of, I don't know what the right word is. It's not gentrification, but all the other like new construction and build and stuff that happened in Westport, like, honestly, nothing against them. Like, this is a testament to them. They weathered it for as long as they could.
Yeah. That's a part of town that's had its ups and downs, and it's and things are a little weird there right now. I live really close to there.
Talking about the concept of like those like classic brew pubs and like the the half-life of a business like that, I think, is one of the things that we're experiencing really for the first time. I mean, I know it's been going on probably for the last 10, 15 years of some of these places closing down, but there are benchmarks near where Mike and I live. Like, for instance, in Delray Beach, there was a restaurant called 32 East that was basically like the place to get fine dining in downtown Delray Beach for a generation. And I would have thought it would be there forever because the food never wavered. The wine list was impeccable. It had the best service, the best reputation, the best everything. The owner was legendary. And as I think, Neil, you said something when you were talking, it ran its course. Like, it ran its course, and it's been gone for like 10 years now. And it blows my mind. The food quality never changed. Everything was great for the day they opened the doors to the day they closed it, but it was time to move on and do something else. And our industry experiencing these things, it feels so young to be doing that, but we're just graduating into that world where you're just a restaurant. You're just another business that is going to go through these cycles and then go do something else. It's sad, but it's also it's poetic in some way. It's like that's just the natural ebb and flow of things.
Yeah, and that's kind of what happens with seemingly just about every restaurant. No matter how successful it is, it kind of reaches a point where, for one reason or another, it's kind of run its course. Maybe it's just not, maybe it suddenly finds itself of a different era. Maybe the owners have, retired and grown weary of running a restaurant or whatever reason. My parents have a place they go to in Columbia, Missouri, where they live, and it's their favorite restaurant, and that place just kills it every night. And that place had been around forever when I was living in Columbia in the early 90s. And so, I mean, I don't even know how long that place has been around. It's just locally owned business, and you'd almost never see that anymore.
Well, I'm still waiting for Shakey's Pizza to make a comeback. I think we can get that happening.
But I think an interesting point that I was thinking about when you were talking about that type of brew pub and that type of concept is, they're definitely of a certain era. But when you look at what's working in beer right now, is if you're a small brewery, that it's almost identical to that original kind of brew pub, right? It's like make all the beer that you can sell out of that location, have some type of food. Don't necessarily have to have some type of food, but maybe it's in the form of a food truck now. I mean, it looks a little different, it's configured a little different, but it's the same basic concept. And that's the one thing that is probably working best in beer right now, out of anything, is like that original concept.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm going to jump in here real quick. I just want to say, when you started talking about what is working right now, I grabbed a pen and a paper because I thought you were going to give me like a way to make everything work. And then when I realized you were saying,
come later in the podcast. That'll be the big reveal.
That'll be great. I realized that everything you just said is kind of what we're doing now. And then I got really disappointed. Like, oh, this is the best it's going to get. God damn it. Okay, fine. Let's go. I'm sorry, Tim.
Well, I think
we just wish we could have scaled back our systems so that we could just make only enough to sell in our tap rooms and not have to distribute it.
Well, yeah, that's part of the problem, is that everyone went too big. But the other thing too, I think, is why it works so well in the tap room setting now. Like you said, the food truck or like the in-residence kitchen.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So they're renting that kitchen space, so you're not having to deal with that, because that's a whole other. I think people don't understand enough that like running a restaurant and running a brewery are two very different animals, right? And brew pubs and that's why brew pubs. I mean, I think about around here. There's some of the legend, even just like Rock Bottom no longer exists anymore around here. Granite City, which was a Minnesota-born company, basically doesn't have anything around here anymore. Barley John's, one of the most widely regarded around here. You basically have Town Hall, but they've opened up several satellite locations, and that's why it works. Like it doesn't work anymore. And for breweries, especially because, like, man, most guys who started a brewery don't even know how to run a brewery, let alone run a restaurant on
Yeah.
top of that.
And I guess, and that's maybe what makes it a little bit simpler now than that, kind of '90s iteration, is that was all in house. That was like, if you ran a brewery, you ran the restaurant too. It wasn't good enough to just make good beer. You had to have really good food and great service and the whole hospitality thing at the same time. So like, if your food sucked, you were probably going to go out of business. Even though you maybe were making fantastic beer. But now you can make fantastic beer, and if your food sucks, you can just kick the guy out or get a different truck or like a different business to move in, right?
Yeah,
You don't
or if they're
necessarily own the whole thing.
or if they're virulently racist and post terrible things on social media.
Well, that's a whole other deal.
I'm not looking at Kevin, but he knows what I'm talking about. Or one that we maybe had at a brewery up here where they ended up actually starting a cult, like literally.
Oh, I remember when
the
you
chicken
sent me.
cult. Yeah. So it makes it
Food truck
really
was
easy
running a
to
cult.
But it makes for a great story.
Has that been optioned, that story yet?
So, by the way, I mean, first of all, terrible, but pretty ingenious. I mean, your food truck, it's mobile. It's like a Pied Piper kind of thing. You can move around, make like really crazy burgers, and also convert people to your ridiculous ideology. I mean, you got to give people respect where it's due.
Yeah.
What was the food type again, Tim?
It was chicken. It was all like
It was like hot chicken?
thing.
Yeah.
It was hot chicken. It was that. Yeah. I know. I don't know. Who knows? Speaking about some of these old kind of legacy breweries and this old school feel shut down, I sent this to Mike earlier today. I feel like I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about it. News breaking that Molson Coors is shutting down the original Leinenkugel's facility in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. Which really makes me sad, because that is definitely very much. I mean, it's not the same brewery that it was in 1867, but it still has a very long legacy at that location and everything. And I know most of that production wasn't happening there, but still, that's a tourist destination for Chippewa Falls, kind of in the middle of nowhere, frankly.
It did say that they're keeping like a pilot brewery and like a tourist center or something like that.
I know, but it's not.
I know it's not the same.
If you've ever done that tour, and I'm certain you guys, I'm certain that you guys
I've never been.
I know. Why would you have come up to there? But I would tell you, it really was, because it really is like it really has been like a real production facility, and it's interesting to see how they built it basically on this farmstead, and you're literally going from like building to building, barn to barn for some of these things. So it's probably not necessarily practical. It probably hasn't been practical for 20 years, but it is still kind of sad to see that, a pilot brewery and tourist thing, it's not going to be the same.
No, it's probably going to hurt the local economy for that town a good bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chippewa Falls is kind of cute. For, middle of nowhere Wisconsin type of thing, but it's also I've loved that brewery forever. It's been a while since I've done that tour or gone to that brewery, because it's not like it's close to me. But it's always been like a one of those corporate team building events, rent a bus and take everyone over there or something like that. That's another one that's more kind of that, as we talk about like the turnover of some of these things. It's not like, there are a lot of things where like, oh my, God, something's going wrong in craft beer. But some of this is just like those things from the 90s that are no longer cool. Like, me. It's I dress exactly as I did in high school, but it is one of those things where seeing something like that I've seen so much about like breweries closing. There's a local cidery that's closing. There's another one in Burnsville that is kind of about to go. And I don't live close to Chippewa Falls, but that one probably made me a little bit more sad than anything else that I've seen recently.
I mean, Leinenkugel is a big name for like in the history of beer.
Oh yeah, I mean, Leinie's Honey Weiss was one of the very first beers that wasn't just Busch Light that I drank in college, and found out it was the best pizza beer freshman year in college. I hadn't had it until my freshman year of college. But Domino's had a 3 mediums for $9 deal. And so me and the two guys next door would get 3 medium pizzas and a case of Liney's Honey Feist. And I was like, holy shit, this beer pairs perfect with pizza.
There are certain things that
Amazing.
when you conceptualize time as we get older, just blow your mind, or at least my mind. I've gone into like a YouTube rabbit hole of like businesses from the 70s and 80s that have shut down, like food court restaurants and malls, right?
Yeah.
And it's like all these restaurants, some of which I know very well, some of which were gone before I came of age. And I find myself in the middle of this video going, oh shit. 10 years from now, they'll be doing a video about all the breweries that used to be prevalent on store shelves, but now you can't find them anymore. And one of the breweries will probably be mine. And well, no, because we've never been that big in the first place. But still, breweries that I loved will be on that. And it will melt your brain if you think too much about how much that passage of time, like what it does to all the things that we hold so dear and that were so revolutionary to us. And it's like standing up and going, no, this is important, guys. Like this was at a really important place that changed a lot of our lives because we were introduced to these beers for the first time through these outlets.
I think you guys should pivot to like a showbiz pizza model though, Kevin, like with animatronic brewers.
Can I get you on a conference call with my partners? Because I've been pitching that for years. I thought so. There was a place in Michigan where I'm from called Major Magics. It was like a Chuck E. Cheese ripoff. There was like one location. Maybe there were two, but I only ever went to one location. There's still a Facebook page for it because people remember it so fondly. And I've been dabbling with the idea of reviving Major Magics here at Barrel of Monks Brewing. And somehow, I don't know how I work that in. We do have an upstairs space that never gets used. So maybe I have animatronics, I make crappy pizza, and also give a mediocre beer. It could work.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. I'm glad we're on the same one.
Yeah, it sounds like the story. What they just released a documentary about the South Park guys resurrecting like some old like Mexican restaurant in Denver from their childhood.
Was it Casa Bonita?
Yeah. It's like a giant money pit. They made a documentary about how hellish it was.
I just have to become a multimillionaire first. That's not a big deal, right, guys? I can figure that out.
Well, I mean,
I think I've eaten at Casa Bonita. Like the first time I ever went out for GABF, I think I went there. Like it's like a burrito the size of like a 2-year-old.
Yeah, and they just opened, and apparently you have to reserve like months in advance to get in because like everybody wants to go there now.
Oh, that's funny.
So I want to talk with you, Neil, a little bit about like the educational role that you were in at Boulevard, because I actually went to a class that you did down here once at Total Wine.
Oh, did you?
Many years ago, when I was working at the first brewery. I know my boss came with me. I don't remember if Kevin was working with us at the time, but yeah, a couple of us from the brewery came over. We were. I don't know if you remember a dude named Ed Roberts. He works for Total Wine. He still does in Florida, and he organized, I think, you at that event, and he told us about it. So we came over. And I think it was after the Duvel purchase, because I think I remember you pouring Witte, and it's like, oh, it's also kind of like your last name.
Yeah.
But it was like a really, really fun educational thing, because like I was still relatively new to the business, and seeing that there's people who work in this industry who teach, it made me happy, because I loved at that time talking about beer. So how much did you enjoy like that type of role of traveling around and talking to people about beer and just kind of being a teacher?
I enjoy it a lot, and I still do that. Not as much as when I was at Boulevard, but I still do a good portion of the private training for Cicerone. And so I do have an opportunity to travel to different conferences and, to small breweries, larger breweries, retailers, distributors, and do beer classes. And it's always fun. I've been doing them long enough to where, the content for me is like something that, like, a lot of times some of these classes that I've done a million times, I just kind of turn it on and go. But I like seeing people sitting there for several hours who are really engaged and are learning something and are excited about beer and just, getting some takeaways. I get a kick out of doing that still to this day. It's a lot of fun, and it's taken me some fun places too. So yeah, it's great.
So one resource that I think a lot of, in particularly brewers, like bar restaurants, really are missing out on, but I'm amazed at the number of brewers that don't understand, is the Brewers Association Draft Quality Manual. And you've been involved in that publication for how long?
Well, we published the first. I want to say the draft quality subcommittee formed in 2007.
Okay.
And that was shortly after the old Association of Brewers merged with the Brewers Association of America, the BAA and the AOB. Merged and became the BA. I think that happened in either 2005 or 2006. And then at that point, they formed some different committees to deal with different topics, and one of those was the technical committee. And so I became part of the technical committee in those early days. Because I wanted to get involved with draft beer stuff, because previous to that, there was a little bit of an ad hoc group that was, I'm drawing a blank on the name of it. It was just this ad hoc group of brewers and other folks who were trying to promote draft beer quality in the industry. It was like me from Boulevard. I think New Belgium was involved. Sierra Nevada was involved.
A bunch of nobodies.
Yeah, Siebel
Yeah.
Institute. It was mainly like it was the Draft Beer Guild. That's what it was. It was mainly people, like individuals from those. There was like one person from Sierra, one person from Siebel, and so there are probably a dozen of us who were trying to kind of get some efforts off the ground to try and make some changes, because back then draft beer was in a really, really bad state. This was early 2000s, and there were lots of like air compressors pushing beer. Like people would literally like take an air compressor and use it for draft dispense, and it was killing beer. And
it still happens a lot in California, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's still places out there that do it. It's kind of crazy, but it's not nearly as bad as what it was.
Learn something new every day. Apparently, I had no idea that's ever happened.
Oh, it's horrifying when you see it. It really is, and it literally makes the beer taste so terrible in like a day. It's like unbelievable that people still do it.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable they did it in the first place. But in any event, like things were kind of, there was a lot of bad stuff happening in draft beer, and so when the BA formed, it was like a chance for a lot of the folks with the Draft Beer Guild to kind of do something a little bit more official with an actual trade group. And then, then we kind of put our heads together, and one of the first things we wanted to do was to kind of put together a manual, speak with one voice, because I was doing a lot of draft training. My colleagues at Sierra Nevada and New Belgium were doing a lot of draft training as well. And we were all kind of saying the same things, but we were, there were little differences, and, and it'd be nice if we were all, thinking it'd be nice if we kind of had one, could speak with one voice about all this stuff. And so Ken Grossman was part of that committee as well. And, that guy, as you know, had a little bit of pull in the business. And he managed to get the participation of Anheuser-Busch and Miller Brewing Company and Coors Brewing Company. This is all pre-ABI.
Yep.
All the merger stuff. They're all separate companies at the time. But we got their participation and had representatives. We had about 20 people. We spent probably 2 years having meetings and splitting off into groups and writing that first edition of the manual. It was a great process. And it was really gratifying to work with other people in the industry who gave a shit as much as I did and as much as the rest of us did. And so we continue to meet to this day, and we have monthly meetings, the draft quality subcommittee at the BA. There's only a couple of us original members left, but there's some really great, knowledgeable people taking part, and we're just kind of tossing ideas around for what an edition 5 might look like. So we've already done, what you see out there right now is the 4th edition, and we've expanded it quite a bit and changed a lot of stuff, and we try to keep things up to date. It's kind of one of those things where as soon as we say, well, it's done, we're not going to do anymore, then all of a sudden it's obsolete. So we continue to discuss current topics and what's relevant, and every few years we tackle a new edition, and it's great. We're all really proud of that manual. To be fair, it's a really dry read. It's a manual. It's not a novel. So
I love it, dude. Like, it has become my Bible. So, like, I first got turned on to that in like 2011 by Jeff Bell, right?
Mhm.
And so we were using that a lot when I was at B-Dub's headquarters, right? And then I go into the brewing world, and I'm really using it not only to teach brewery owners, the number of people who don't know how to use this thing, right? And then I do brewing school, and it's actually that's a resource being taught at the American Brewers Guild, which is awesome that they're doing that, and because I feel like there's so many things. And now, even in my current position in food service equipment, I'm still using that. Like, I had a beer with a rep the other day when we were talking about kind of what they're doing with the taps in their portfolio and what's going to change, and I'm referencing that. So, like, it's been something that for well over a decade I've been using as a reference, and constantly, like, I mean, I remember, it's really common in maybe not all over the place, certainly up here, for distributors to really be the draft people to set you up. And I've used that manual so many times to be like, yeah, no, I get what you did. It does not make sense. And here, let me show you why, whether that be, rise and run or restriction or gas blend or any of those things. Like, to me, it feels like that should be, if you're going to open a tap room, that should be like a mandatory thing to have right there as a reference manual, something to go through. You're right. It's not exactly, I don't know what an exciting book is.
Well,
Moneyball. I read that one night. Moneyball. It's not exactly Moneyball, but it is. But it is something that is such a vital resource that I think both, because like when I was having a beer with that rep, we were at a restaurant where we had put in, where he had supplied the draft equipment for that draft system, and the servers were doing an absolutely horrible job. And I did not go back into the walk-in, but I'm certain that someone had fucked with the regulator after someone else had already gotten it set, because everything was pouring like shit. But the servers weren't doing a great job even managing all of that. Like, everything about that was driving me insane. And it's like, hey, you know what? We've got this tool. Like, how do I get even the reps for the equipment to start using that tool? So when they're doing owner trainings, when we hand over an install. Those types of things. It's been, I can't gush about it enough. I'm obviously very fanboy on it, but it's been my Bible for a long time.
I'm glad you find it valuable. I tell you, there's I've been working with restaurants and bars and with breweries for a long time, and really the breweries, it surprises me still how how little a lot of breweries actually know about draft beer. And then when you think about, especially if you're a small brewer, you're so much of your revenue is running through your draft system, and to put it together, and have it pour foam all the time. Oh my God, it's got, it's just the worst to see that happening. Somebody really struggling to pour beer through their own system, and it's like, this is where all of your revenue is, right here through this one system, and it's not working right because it wasn't designed right.
Yeah.
So common.
Imbalanced systems, and then ones that it seems like around here, and I think we do a really good job of beer here. I've never been shy about saying I think we do a good job, but there still are plenty of brewers that don't even understand how to line clean, and I don't understand why that's not like 101.
Yeah, that's evergreen problem right there.
But how many people got into this industry with any kind of prior knowledge or looked anything up or just said, I'm going to do the thing that I did when I was, making beer in my garage? I mean, this is one of the best craft beer bars that Mike and I kind of grew up with in our beer knowledge had one of the worst draft systems and poured foam on every single beer. I'm not going to name the bar because I don't want to blow their spot, but Mike knows what I'm talking about.
They still exist.
They still exist, and good people. But I would go and they'd put on a beer and it would do nothing but pour foam for 2 nights. Then it would regulate and then it would be flat because all the CO2 got blown off of it because they were running their beer at like 5 PSI and the beer was 50 degrees in the cooler.
And once it was flat, it poured great.
Yeah, and he complained about everything. It was always the brewery or the distributor that fucked everything up. And,
of course.
And I went in
those
there at one
kegs were
point.
just sitting in the kitchen in the back.
Oh God.
And I would go in there and I told him when I learned a little something, I said, this is what you need to do. You need to make this cooler colder. So you have to get service on it. You need to jack up the pressure here to regulate it. Oh no, when I turn the pressure up, it pours more foam. I'm like, because you have nothing is configured correctly. Yeah. So we can replace the lines in here to put some restriction on these like higher, carbonated Belgian beers. Didn't want to hear anything about any of that because that would cost money, and just cursed out the breweries and distributors forever. And that was my introduction to craft beer. And it was a great place, and it still is. He's a
has he ever fixed the system?
No, never.
No.
He's an evangelist for craft beer that never even had any concept of what they were doing, and it's a shame.
It is funny how people can love beer and not know. Like, I don't know any other, like, there are always people who think they're foodies and don't know how to cook a goddamn thing, right? But it's a whole other thing that in like beer, for whatever reason, you can be a total like drink good beer, but I'm gonna serve it to you the shittiest way possible.
At a basic level, that's just like some basic self-awareness issues, I think.
Yeah, but it happens a lot, and like there are 2 tools that I always go to anyone with. It's the McDantum Easy Blend app that no one seems to fucking use, which is like,
it's a brilliant app.
Use it. Yeah. Use it. By the way, brewers, use it in your cellar when you're carbonating your beer. Like,
yeah, I use it when I'm talking to people at retail and like they're and their beer's messed up. I'm like, oh well, here, look, this is what it should be.
Yeah, right. It's got your elevation, it's got your temperature, it's got your desired volumes of CO2. Like, it's got yes.
Yeah. Or right? Here's what I like the best is here is the level of CO2 that you're creating in the keg right now.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Right. Like, yeah. That's why that's pouring like shit right now.
Yeah.
And, to Kevin's point, sometimes you're still having to try to overcome that whole like restriction, and people are everyone's trying to pour faster than the 2 ounces per second because they want to be fast.
Oh, wait, I don't know how many times I've been to a place and they're pouring foam, and you hear one person yelling, "You need to turn the CO2 down," and another person saying, "You need to turn it up," and like, okay, no one knows what the fuck they're doing here.
Yeah,
I should probably leave.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So when you run, so when you're running it, so as you're consulting, with obviously, if people are smart enough to bring you in, they're smart enough to know they're not doing things right in theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just because an owner brings you in doesn't mean a bar manager agrees or the staff necessarily agrees. So like how do you navigate training, say a restaurant team or group or anything like that on what good beer service should look like?
Well, you know, one of the first things I learned when I got into this is that you know, your message is not going to be received by somebody who doesn't want to hear it. So by going in a place and just saying, hey, you're doing this wrong, this is how you should do it, when they didn't ask you for help, this is the wrong way to approach it. You're probably going to fail every time. The first day I ever worked with a draft tech, when I started the field quality role with Boulevard, this is probably in like 2000. I was with the draft manager for our local distributor, and he was one of these old dog draft guys, I've been doing this forever type guys. And we went out to, nice seafood restaurant in the morning before they opened. He was just kind of walking me around, showing me draft stuff. And he was just kind of talking in general, like about how bartenders don't know what they're doing and they always screw up pouring the beer, blah, blah, blah. He's like, here, watch this. And we walk up to the bartender and who's opening up, and he's like, excuse me, ma'am, will you pour a beer? And she's like, huh? It's like, oh, we're with the distributor. Will you pour a beer? It's like, okay. And so she pours a beer and like dunks the faucet in the beer or whatever. And he's like, see, you should never do that. You never dunk the faucet in the beer. That's the worst thing you can do. And she looked at him like, fuck you, man. Who the hell are you to come into my bar and tell me I'm fucking things up? Like, what the hell? And she, like that message was completely lost on her. I mean, that was like one of the first lessons I got right out of the gate. It's like, this is how you don't tell somebody they're doing something wrong. Because if they're not asking you for help, it's probably not a good idea to go tell them that they're screwing things up. There is a way to approach that type of thing, that type of situation, but you have to develop a rapport with somebody, and you have to, start by asking questions, and then free advice is oftentimes a good thing, but only in a certain context, and it's a really tricky thing. And I still have friends, sometimes they'll text me from a bar or brewery, send me a picture of like a dirty glass. They're like, you got to get down here and teach them how to clean glassware. I'm like, do I? I'm like, are they asking for help? Well, no. Like, well, then I could have come in and told them their glassware's fucked up. I mean, like, they're not going to hear the message, right? So there's plenty of people who are looking for assistance, and that's enough to take up pretty much everybody's time. There's people who are screwing things up left and right who aren't ever going to hear the message. So it's kind of, you have to be selective about how you approach things. Certain things, certain things are going to make people mad if you suggest it in the wrong way. So, a lot of the places I'm in and talking to people, they've asked me to be there, or I've approached them in a way where, I ask them questions like, hey, I noticed your beer, you poured a little bit of foam down the drain. Is that pretty common? Well, yeah. Okay. Has anybody ever looked at that? Well, blah, blah, blah. It's that, you can just ask some questions and develop a little bit of a rapport if it's somebody who's not actually asking for help. And then, and I'm usually only doing that at places where, like, I really care about what's happening at this place. There's some places there you could tell they don't care. And you ask a question, yeah, this is just where draft beer is. They don't want any help.
Oh yeah, this is just the way it is. They just assume there's something else wrong. That one drives me up the wall. There was a place I was a semi-regular at, and all the bartenders hated that the bar manager wouldn't address certain things. Eventually, they were like, "Tim, can you just go back and look at what was going on?" And they had like that thing cranked way too high, so that keg was overcarbonating. It was shooting out of the faucet. because to Mike's point, they were like, "Oh, it's pouring bad. You got to crank it up." Which 9 times out of 10 you do. It's because you have it too low and not too high. But that one time out of 10 where someone took that to an extreme, and now there's 3 volumes of CO2 in that damn thing, it's not going to pour worth of shit for a draft system balance at 2.5.
Yeah. Well, diplomacy is the key, right? You got to put on your diplomat hat and be nice, ask questions, don't tell people what to do. That's a lot of it right there.
Well, so this seems like a really good segue into talking about bar rescue and going into places who I guess kind of want the help, but also kind of don't want the help, and you being brought in to say what they're doing wrong.
Yeah, that show's crazy. It's a minefield of bad information for one. It's really entertaining, but they're
my favorite hate watch. It's my favorite hate watch.
Yeah,
I scream at Taffer the entire time.
There's a lot of problems with that show.
I gave it up like 5 years ago, and I'm a better person for it. It was my wife is really into like a lot of these like Love Island and all those like that kind of reality TV. And for years we had this parallel. Like I get to watch Bar Rescue, you get to watch Fuckboy Island or whatever the hell they're watching, and and then like I gave that up, and now I hold that over her all the time. Is that I give up Bar Rescue? Maybe you should give up these things. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But there's so much terrible stuff on that show. Like,
oh my god, yeah. But like, and it's not just the terrible stuff from like the retailers or the places they're trying to save. I mean, John Taffer's got some pretty bad advice too.
Yeah, he's trying to make everything a nightclub from the 1980s. He does not understand
and they're trying
the basic
to sell products and stuff too.
Yeah,
they're trying to promote their sponsors' products and stuff. So
I know, but sometimes he says something where I just want to be like, stop.
Yeah. All that said, it like taking part in that show was really, really fun. It was a really good time. I was there for about 4 days or something like that, and the place was doomed. It was what
was the episode that you were on?
It was called Loggers and Liars, and it was a place in LA that it was called, I think, LA Brewing Company.
I remember that one, yeah.
And they had like 100 taps. It wasn't a brewery. They said they were called LA Brewing Company, but they weren't a brewery. They had like 100 taps, but there were only like 15 that had beers on them. It was this giant place, and it was empty all the time. And the guy, I guess, was just like, the business was hemorrhaging money and had been for a long time. And the guy was like sucking off of his family's glass business or something to keep the thing afloat. And he was like $1 million in debt. There was no way that this guy was going to get bailed out. But the show went in there anyway and like did its thing. And as part of it, what they wanted to do, they had the sponsor was this company that made this like really fancy kind of basically a homebrew setup.
Yeah, it's like a giant brewing Keurig.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was. It was like a giant homebrew setup that looked like a pro setup. It had like cylindrical conical fermenters, and they had wort that was basically bag in the box wort syrup, like malt syrup. And they had like 3 different kinds. There was like a dark and amber and a light, and it was they put it all in this thing, and you just like hit a button or use an app or something, and it would blend water with the, depending on the recipe, it'd take different amounts of the different wort and put it into the fermenter, and all you would have to do is like dump a little yeast packet in the top, and then at a certain time you dump the hops in, but that's all you needed to do. The whole thing it was all temperature control. It was actually, for what it did, it was a pretty cool system. But it was like that was part of their solution to like save the whole thing.
At the time that company was hitting up me at B Dubs pretty hard.
Oh, really? Yeah.
They were like, if B Dubs wants to go down the road of doing brew pub,
They're like,
let me
hey
show you how
man,
to
we were
do all
just
this
featured
stuff."
on Bar Rescue.
Yeah, I know, and it's funny because that's kind of maybe the most iconic. Again, don't get me wrong. I'm not blaming you. You almost looked frustrated that episode.
Oh, you did, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I told them before I went on that because I knew that they were going to try and place this thing. I knew enough about the episode in advance, and I was like, look, I would like to come on and do it, and I'll come in and do it, and I'll do like the educational thing and the bar training thing, but I don't want to be in any of the shots with that brewing setup.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't.
So how did you get hooked up with the Bar Rescue crew? How did that even happen in the first place?
I think initially I got contacted by, it was a couple years before I got contacted by some headhunter who was, looking for somebody to be on the show. And they reached out to me. I forget how they got a hold of me, probably just email or something like, hey, I'm with Bar Rescue. We're looking for somebody to do an episode like in 3 days. Can you do it? And I was like, yeah. And I had I have a good friend here who has done some television shows, like some food shows like Top Chef Masters and stuff like that. And she helped me like quick film some B-roll and stuff and get it sent in. And it ended up not working out from a scheduling standpoint on their end. But they had like, at that point, they had my name and they had some B-roll that I had filmed. And it turned out in that whole process, my friend who helped me do all that knew one of the producers through some shows that she had filmed in the past. And she ended up doing they connected about doing an episode when they were in Kansas City at one point. And then I ended up like going out for an after party with all of them and meeting a bunch of the producers. And so that kind of got me even more on their radar. And then when something popped up with beer opportunity, most of them are like, they get like, mixologists or whatever. Most of them are not focused on beer, but when they had a beer episode came up, they contacted me and it worked out.
Yeah, there are a couple times they'll have a mixologist go over the beer, and it's like that's even worse than what Taffer's saying sometimes.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. The production crew is amazing, like really, really good people. Participating in that thing is a lot of fun to kind of see how the sausage is made behind the scenes. Taffer is exactly the way you think he would be. Like imagine like if you met him in person and he was like that guy you see on TV, that's the way he is.
I met him once at a restaurant show back when I was at B-Dubs, and yeah, he is exactly that.
Yeah. So he didn't really hang around with anybody. He just kind of like went off to his own trailer and did his own thing. But the production crew were awesome, and I spent a lot of the time just sitting in the production trailer watching everything on the big screens as they were filming it. And there was just some crazy shit happen on that show. I mean, like, because they set all these things up, to like create conflict and to have things break and not like set things up to physically break, but like you set up a scene knowing that like it's gonna like cause some like spectacular display. They do the whole, Tapper does his big intro where they like, surprises quotations. Yeah. And then, you teach them a couple of basic things, and then they do the stress test where they bring in like 100 people or flood the place. And that whole thing is just designed to fail, right? Because you're packing the place full of people with staff that's never had a full house before. So of course it's going to go badly.
Yeah.
And the one I was in went like spectacularly bad. I mean, it was like, it like fell off the rails before it even got started.
What was it? They ran out of CO2 or something?
Yeah, they ran out of gas. And people are like, no, they had to have drained the tanks. I'm like, I don't think they did. I really don't think they did. Like, I think they really ran out of gas at the beginning of the thing, because when when they told John Tapper about that, he like literally like completely lost his mind, and just like standing in a small utility closet where the gas tanks were, with the owner of this place and John Taffer standing literally like a foot and a half from my face, and John screaming at the top of his lungs and telling this guy how much of a loser he is, was just like one of the more surreal moments.
So does
The
that
best
shit
moment of John Taffer's life right there. If that happened spontaneously, he's like, this is it. This is the pinnacle of everything I can imagine.
He's just looking for a moment to just explode on people. That's that's like the money scene. They had been, the production all the way up to that point, they had been frustrated because the owner was such a pushover. They like try and push their buttons so they react. And then once they react, then Taffer gets going and it creates conflict, and then they got a show. And that wasn't happening. John kept poking this guy and he wouldn't do anything. He was just kind of like, okay, like he was a really nice guy, and he was like very passive, and he just wasn't going to let John push his buttons. And like literally like before the stress test, like the producers were talking amongst themselves. They were like, we might have to abandon this shoot. We might have to just walk away from this because there's not a show here. And I was like, holy shit. Like
there is really not enough conflict here.
Yeah, that's literally what they were saying. And so we did this stress test, and Taffer melted down, like, and he gets up in front of the crowd, and like half this stuff didn't even make the cut. It was just so funny because he gets up in front, everybody goes, that's it. Okay, it's over. The gas is out. And Richard's a loser. It's because he's a loser. And he's never going to amount to anything in his life. And that's why everybody's got to go. Because he's a loser and this place is a failure. And he's like, Richard, you're going to stand up at the door and you're going to look everybody in the face as they leave so they can see how much of a loser you are. It's just like, oh my God, he's just like destroying this guy. It was and everybody was stunned. Even the producers are standing there like with like looks of shock on their face. It's like, holy shit, this guy's like completely losing his mind. And so everybody's like in a state of shock. And when the shoot's finally over, I walk back into the production trailer, and everybody in the production trailer was like, that was awesome. And they're like cheering and like, we have a show. I'm like, oh my God, this is so fucking nuts.
So does he give a shit when the cameras are off at all about that business?
I can't say. I mean, he probably does to a certain extent. I mean, I don't think those guys think in some of these cases that they're necessarily going to save it. But but I don't know if that's, I mean, their intent maybe doesn't matter, because I mean, they're there to make a show. Sure. And what they're doing is they're pumping, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars into a business and giving them a legit chance to make it.
Sure, but they're also shutting them down for like 3 days worth of lost revenue, which can also be.
Yeah, but I mean, at that point, these businesses, like, there's not much revenue that they're losing anyway. At that, I mean, they're already losing money hand over fist. So shut them down for 3 days is not that big of a deal.
I suppose.
I mean, I'm sure, like, you shut them down with it. I mean, they're going to lose like $500 a day or something in revenue because they're not doing very much business anyway, and they get $100,000 makeover. And some of those places do make it. So I don't want to paint the picture that it's like some evil thing. I mean, it's a television show, and and that's what they're there to do first and foremost. And in the process, they end up helping out some businesses. But first and foremost, they want to make a dramatic reality show. And it's entertaining as hell. And it's fun to be a part of. Education is not the first concern of theirs, though.
You're so mild mannered, Neil, that I don't think that I like. It would have been fun if you could have gotten more angry at someone, but you never.
I feel like I did kind of, right?
Did you get kind of annoyed? Did you call anyone a loser and tell them that they're going to be a failure for the rest of their life? Because they might have brought you back if you had.
God. I felt so bad for that guy. Poor Richard. He was just like, he just had his tail between his legs.
That is your mistake. Empathy. You can't have that. Not in today's world. You can't have empathy or decency. Just call everyone a loser. That's the way to go.
Yeah.
And that's how you get elected president.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking, how has Taffer not been offered the a place in Trump's cabinet as the head of the small business administration? Small business.
Right
just go and yell at everybody until they get it right.
I don't know. He'll be Secretary of Energy or something like that. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Secretary of Agriculture. Oh, jeez. Yeah, that was a very surreal moment. I don't know if I would. They probably wouldn't invite me back anyway.
I was going to ask, would you do it again?
Especially after they listen to this podcast. But
I am certain
no
the
one
producers
listens to this podcast.
Yeah. You are wildly overestimating our reach. There's 4 people that listen to this podcast.
You're like the third person.
One of them is Kevin's dad, by the way. He's our biggest fan.
You're like the third person I've ever interviewed with connections to a reality TV show, and I don't think anyone, including one who's still a producer of it, has anything necessarily positive to say about the experience.
It's weird. It's the whole. I mean, just how produced it really is kind of eye opening, because you know how like they'll kind of cut to one of the main people like after the stress test, they cut to somebody who's like, well, I'm really impressed with like how John did. It kind of held his own, and like it got busy and they did really great. So I think like he's gonna work out, that type of thing. They film all that stuff beforehand. And they're like, okay, so let's pretend like the stress test goes really well and John like really like did terribly. So talk about that. And now let's pretend he did really good. Talk about that. It's so funny.
It's like we all have a general idea like that reality television is scripted, but I guess it isn't until you participate in it that you really see how much it is.
Like I said, you see how the sausage is made.
There's a great episode of Adam Ruins Everything from Adam Conover, who did a whole thing about reality TV, which was absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Was there anything from that experience that surprised you, Neil?
I don't know. I mean, not really. I mean, from a business standpoint and from a draft beer or a beer quality standpoint, a food standpoint, I've seen a lot of nasty stuff. So none of that surprised me. And reality TV, I mean, I kind of went in with my eyes open, like anything's going to happen here. And some crazy shit happened.
Anything you would change from that experience?
No. I mean, I'm not necessarily a person who like lives with regret or anything. I mean, it kind of is what it is.
No, I just know,
it's not like he came out of this looking bad.
no. Seriously, as as someone who's been following you in your social media orbit forever,
I don't even have a social media orbit anymore. I don't even.
Well, that's true. I
gave up on most of that.
You still have the Twitter. I at least deleted mine. Or sorry, X.
Yeah, I mean my account still exists.
Yeah. But anyway, Pluto still has like a bar rescue channel, so it's running bar rescue like all day long, right? And so sometimes when I'm doing something, I need noise in the background, I'll throw that on, and so your episode comes on quite a bit.
Yeah, I get texts periodically from friends like, "Hey, I just saw you on Bar Rescue." I'm like, "Oh, must be in reruns again."
Well, it's so funny because like every time it comes on, as I've gotten to know you more and more over the years, I just see more and more of like, nope, that is exactly just Neil. Like it just feels more and more like, yep, that's exactly what I would expect him to say, or that's how I'd expect him to react, or just I don't know, Mike. What was the word I said to describe him? Like he almost looked.
I mean, the point of the gas running out, like, and John's just ripping into that guy. Like, you're just kind of back there being like, where can I get away from?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I could not escape. We were in this like really small utility closet, all like right on top of each other. It was, oh man, that was funny.
I feel like, and I saw that episode and obviously had no connection to you whatsoever. And like revisiting it and thinking back on like my experience of watching it, I feel like from a hour-long conversation with you, you're one of the most genuine, decent, empathetic people that I can see out there, and you don't belong
Thank
on
you.
that show. You don't belong there. That's not your
there's-
place.
Yeah, I did have somebody, one of my colleagues, tell me that he was disappointed in me for doing that show.
But by the way, that's not
He
what
said
I was
that- He
saying.
said that in earnest. Like,
I wasn't saying that. I wasn't judging. I'm just saying that, like, from all the people that are trying to shame others, you don't seem to have that as part of your modus operandi.
yeah, it's not the way I typically operate.
Well, and I've known other people that have been experts on the show, and they were all actually in like straight up sales roles. That wasn't what was portrayed on the show, right? Oh, this is a
Yeah,
cocktail expert. Well, yeah. Pernod Ricard calls all their sales people cocktail experts or whatever, right?
sure.
You're the only one I know that I've seen on that show that I've been like, no, actually, Neil actually knows what the fuck he's talking about. He's not in a sales role when he's doing that type of thing. I mean, I'm sure it certainly there was probably a certain marketing benefit to all of that. But
Now, Tim, now that you said that you've known other people on the show,
Yeah.
do you know anybody that was like more mean and more aggressive? And we could have them here as well, and then we can see like a
Get them in right
juxtaposition.
now. Call them.
A juxtaposition of like a decent, kind person versus a monster. Because I could
Yeah,
that
Who is
could
the
be interesting.
asshole?
We actually have John Taffer waiting right now. He's been listening the entire time.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I know. But like you said, like especially because like I think the show I saw him at was in Vegas, which is his home turf. He was extra taffery. Like he's
Yeah.
everything I would expect it to be, and then more.
Yep.
I like the concept of the show. I just don't.
Oh, I mean, I used to every Sunday night, like I would go to my folks' house for like an early dinner, and then I would go to the brewery that I worked at and go hang out with a couple of the regulars and the daytime bartenders who were getting off shift, and we would watch it on. I think it was Spike at the time or whatever that network was,
Yeah.
and it was like 6 episodes back to back, and just hate watch it like this is my Sunday night.
I used to do the same thing with the old, like the original British Kitchen Nightmares with Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much what Bar Rescue's modeled after. It's the same show.
Well, and he's Gordon Ramsay is frankly kind of reformed his image to the point where he doesn't come across as a pompous asshole like he used to.
Yeah, he does like kids reality shows and stuff now.
Yeah, he's
He has,
actually
like,
kind of
genuine like cooking demo videos like on YouTube where he's like actually teaching you technique and stuff like that and not being a prick and like
Well,
showing
the guy actually
his
knows
skill.
cooking. He's a he's a skilled chef. I mean, how much he's practicing that these days, who knows? But
sure.
but the guy knows what he's talking about.
Well, and like his TikTok reaction videos and stuff like that, where people like tag him and say, "Gordon Ramsay, rate my beef Wellington or rate my grilled cheese or thing." Like he actually has come across as human and genuine, and I have a hard time thinking that John Taffer could ever get away with that. But the dude also can't make a Manhattan on a daytime talk show without looking like a complete idiot. So that's neither here nor there. If you've never watched him try to make a Manhattan, I don't remember if he was making a Manhattan or old fashioned. He tried to make one, but he did the other. I don't remember what it was. It was a nightmare. I think it was on Rachel Ray or something. He does not know what he's doing. He also was in an interview once where he said that mezcal was the same thing as mescaline, which just because their names sound the same is not at all. That's like saying
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So we have a great guest on this week. Is this episode somehow going to be called "Fuck You, John Taffer"? Is that somehow like we've evolved and we've gone down a rabbit hole and we just have to own it? Is that what's going to happen?
No, I know.
I
I blame myself. I didn't ask
what's
Neil
just
on.
happening with Google right now when I try to type. I'm typing in John Taffer tries. I was going to type in John Taffer a Manhattan, and the autofill is John Taffer tries to kill Rachel Ray.
Yeah.
Like
Same video.
like, what the fuck is going on here that Google is recommending this to me?
Yeah.
Well, this is the most I've talked about Bar Rescue in years.
Well, I'm sorry. I apologize, and I hope that you will move on from this interview and do more positive things with your life.
Yeah, and I apologize, Neil. I did not invite you on so that we could talk about Bar Rescue, but it did segue there based off of the training people who don't want to be trained.
Hey, this is the kind of free form podcast we've got going here.
Yeah, no,
We don't have a plan.
I invited you on because I feel like I'm one of the few people in the brewing industry that give a shit about actual draft quality. Because
I appreciate that.
No, I'm gonna go back to it. There's so many brewers that are like shitty at draft quality. It drives me up the wall. There's so many restaurant bar managers. When I was at Buffalo Wild Wings, there was a guy who the year before had just won GM of the year. GM of a company store. So Buffalo Wild Wings, about 50% were company owned, 50% were franchise. Of the company owned, he had just won GM of the year, and I was in his restaurant when the gas vendor showed up. And he did not know. So he sat and watched that McDantum blending system in his back, and he did not realize that the gas blending system was sending, the 70-30 to his regular beers and his 60-40 to it. He did not, he didn't understand what he was doing. He didn't understand that there were two different gas blends coming out of his gas blender.
Award-winning general manager knows nothing about the system that generates like a huge percentage of his revenue.
A giant part of the revenue.
That checks out to me.
Yeah,
I know.
Tracks.
I was like, it literally is like we call that Guinness mix for a reason. Like that. I don't understand how you don't get that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, it drove me up the wall. I'm like, why do you think this? We literally have this thing that does two different blends. There's two different outs going to your like. How do you? I know.
Welcome to my world.
Neil, I don't know how you do it. I have a lot of passion for draft quality. I don't think I have the patience to teach people draft quality. So you're a hero in my book just for that alone.
Awesome.
Man, I would have loved, in retrospect, to have taken you into the walk-in cooler of my first brewery and shown you that draft system, because Kevin worked there with me too at one point, and that was a horror in and of itself.
I've seen some bad coolers before, and there pretty much isn't anything that's going to freak me out anymore.
It is funny because you were doing a presentation to me and my boss in the town that our brewery was in, and it could have been like, hey, come on over to our brewery after this thing, and like, oh man, we dodged a bullet there, but then a bullet eventually hit that place, and it's no more.
It is no more, yes,
yeah.
For multiple reasons, including that and many, many other things.
These things happen.
Is there anything else that either of you guys want to ask Neil about before we head into last calls?
No, I just really appreciate your insight, and I also appreciate your measured way of looking at things. It is refreshing, and I really appreciate anyone who's trying to educate people. Man, do I appreciate them for doing that in the field of craft beer. And also, you said something earlier that was like, you can't teach someone that doesn't want to learn. It was something in that vein. I'm paraphrasing it at some point. but I think that's the most important thing that we can just say about anything. Forget craft beer, and to have that kind of motto and work in that way is something I think we all should kind of embody in some way, shape, or form.
Yep, I agree. Yep, that these lessons can be applied elsewhere.
I mean,
And you're a philosophy major, right?
Yeah, that's true. a German philosophy major, so it's all like Kant and Nietzsche, and yeah. No, I mean, I think kind of tagging on to what Kevin was saying is that yeah, people don't want to learn, so you have to learn how to pick your battles. But man, sometimes things just need to. You got to move the needle somehow, and I don't know what that balance is. Is like for every brewery that is reaching out to you for help, I want to scream and shake like 7 other brewers for not asking you for help, and I don't know. I
kind of decided a long time ago I couldn't save everybody, and so I'll save the people that ask for help.
But there's so much of this like why do I care? My beer is selling, right? It's hard to convince someone that they're giving a shitty or an inferior product if it's selling anyway, right? That's why so many of these like shitty breweries during the boom lasted for as long as they did, is because why should I improve my quality? It's already selling, right? Like you're up against that every single day. But
and I don't mean for that to sound like I don't give a shit about I only give a shit about the places that ask me for help. It's because that's not true. It's just there is a level of futility out there if you start trying to save everybody.
Yeah,
and like the places where I like to go and drink beer. When things are screwed up, I talk to them about it, and I'll bring it up, and they know what I do, and I'll help them. And like my neighborhood watering hole had some issues with a couple of draft lines, and this little direct draw in the cooler, and I just grabbed some tubing out of my basement and went up there on my own time and replaced the lines because it's where I like to drink. And I didn't want to hassle anybody about it and want to have the manager go ask the owner and all that bullshit. I just went and fixed it because that's a place that I like to drink beer, and I wanted it to be okay. Sometimes I'll do stuff like that. But I do care, but you got to choose your battles.
Yeah. You can't bang your head against the wall all the time. You end up with CTE.
No, but Neil, thank you. You are kind of one of these kind of hidden heroes in the craft brewing world, because it's draft quality is one of those things, and draft service is one of those things that I feel it still gets undersold in this entire kind of.
Oh, for sure. In the the post-COVID era, where draft is still something that hasn't really recovered in the way of sales out in the market. The fact that there's still people out there putting time and energy into making it still a thing and making it important is commendable at best, and just fucking amazing. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
All right, let's head into last calls. Point in the show where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to talk about whatever it is that we want. The only rules is that it's unobjected, uninterrupted, unopposed, and normally we like to start with our guest when we have a guest on for this. So, Neil, what would you like to say?
So I'll talk a little bit about this kind of rabbit hole that I've been diving down. And it's about, surprise, surprise, it's about draft beer. So you guys are probably well aware of the Lucre side pull faucets, which are at, a number of breweries and bars, and pouring beer in different ways with these faucets. And I've been very interested in this since those started to kind of make an appearance here in the States. And I think one of the breweries that really kind of put it out there for a lot of other brewers in the industry was Bierstadt in Denver. If you guys have ever been there and seen what they're doing with the slow pour pills, they're pouring their pills multiple times with the side pull faucet, creating a lot of foam, letting it settle, and then pouring it like 3 times, and you get this like kind of like fluffy meringue like head on top. And they just freaking kill it with that beer. I mean, the beer's delicious to start with, and it's really cool what they're doing with that. And so I got really curious about, like, when these first started to kind of make an appearance, like, what's the story with these things, and started going down a little bit of the rabbit hole of like the Czech pours and like, the origin of those Lukr faucets. Lukr is the manufacturer of those, and how there's different ways that that they pour beer with these faucets in the Czech Republic. A few years back, I guess it's been more than a few years now, probably more like 5 years ago or so, I did a YouTube interview with Evan Rail, who is an author. He's a beer writer. Has written a couple books, American expat living in the Czech Republic, and knows quite a bit about these faucets. And it was a Cicerone organized thing. We did it through Cicerone, but I interviewed him for about an hour and a half on a YouTube thing, and you can still find this on the Cicerone YouTube channel. We talked about Lukr faucets and the different pours, and showed some videos of the different kind of traditional pours. Evan, and it was me just kind of pitching softball questions out there for Evan. Evan's like giving great information about these faucets. And so it's really cool. There's like, you'll see sometimes breweries that have these faucets offering beer poured in different ways. And it's typically like 3 different ways. One they call hladinka, where they'll kind of open the faucet part way, and it creates this. One of the unique things about that faucet is has this fine mesh screen in the tip, and it produces this really kind of wet, drinkable foam. So it's different than that like kind of fluffy foam that Bierstadt creates on the top of their beers. These faucets are originally designed to pour beer really fast and with a really wet, drinkable foam. So they'll pour like 2/3 of a glass of foam and then dunk the faucet all the way down underneath the foam, and then layer clear beer underneath. And so when you drink it, you get this like really interesting texture of this like wet, drinkable foam mixed in with the beer, and it's just a completely different beer than if you took the same beer and just poured it through a regular faucet with like, inch and a half head, which is like the kind of like official like way you're supposed to do it. And I've done this at home. I have a side pull faucet, and I have a little like cheapo dorm fridge kegerator I screw around sometimes, and I've literally like taken beers and had like a regular faucet, pour beer the regular way, drink it, and then swap out the Lukr faucet and then pour a hladinka of the same beer, and it's like 2 different beers. It's pretty amazing. They also do one that is, you've probably seen, they call the mliko, which is like basically a milk pour is what they call it, where it's literally just all foam. But it's drinkable foam because there's just more beer in it, and it's the way this faucet creates this wet drinkable foam. And so it's really interesting. Lately, I've gotten turned on to some different social media accounts of a couple of different bars in Japan that are doing some interesting things. So apparently, the Japanese really revere foam much like the Czechs do, and it's some of these beer bars, they really get into pouring beer in different ways and creating different amounts of foam, different textures in the beer, and creating a number of different user experiences, or drinker experiences, if you were, as it were. So, like, there's one place, for example, called Shigatomi, which is in Hiroshima, and he's got a YouTube channel, and almost every, I mean, he's really popular on YouTube. He's got a ton of videos on YouTube, but they're all in Japanese. There's only like one that has subtitles, so you could actually like understand what he's saying. But this guy's like a real like draft beer evangelist, and he's got this little standing bar, and I think he limits sales to like 2 beers. You can come in, you can have 2 beers, and then you got to go. He pours one beer at a time. He'll have like Sapporo or something that is not necessarily something which is like, you know, some rare beer or something like that. It's just something that just like a standard lager beer. But he pours it through. He's got 2 different faucets that he can pour it through, and he can pour beer like a dozen different ways, same beer. And he will explain like how it changes the character of the beer, and, you know, and the texture of the beer, and it's got this whole thing. There's another Instagram account, and I'm not remembering the name of it right now, that it's literally all them, just the whole account is just video after video of them pouring beer. And it's just like a close up of the, you know, the faucet and them pouring the beer in different ways. And so they're really into it too. And both of them have put out like some different videos that are a little bit kind of an explanation of like how they're doing these different beer pours and how it affects the flavor. And it comes down to a number of different factors in the beer. So like when you're creating foam, you're pulling carbonation out, right? So you're knocking the carbonation down in the beer a little bit. So that's one thing that you're playing around with, is how much gas are you actually knocking out of the beer? And that's changing the texture of the beer. As it's pulling gas out, you're getting, it's pulling bittering compounds out, especially in that kind of crown of the foam. You get more bitterness. So you're pulling some bitterness out of the beer as well, and kind of putting it into the foam. And then, so if you play around with those 2 factors, you've got like a texture difference in the beer. You've got a bitterness difference that you can kind of play around with in the beer. You've got a bitterness that you can play around with the foam, and you can play around with that in a number of different ways. Like you can leave that foam on top and drink it, or you can get rid of that. You can pull those bittering compounds out and then let it overflow and get rid of it and create and get to that more drinkable foam on top. So like, what's the texture of that foam and how much bitterness is in there? Have you gotten rid of that bitterness or not? Then there's ways where you can pour it with like no foam at all, like 3/4 of the way, and then layer foam on top of it. So you've got some bittering compounds in that foam but they're not coming from the beer that you just poured. So like with all those different things, there's all these different permutations of ways that you can pour beer. With just one beer, you can change what you're doing and create a different experience. And so my friend JP, who is a brewer at Dovetail Brewing in Chicago, who has also, she kind of turned me on to this rabbit hole, so to speak, some time ago. She's done a couple of pop-ups now at Dovetail where they're doing this exact thing. So she partners with another guy who owns a beer bar called Beer Miscuous in Chicago, and he comes in as the guest tapster, and they'll pour several different beers, but they'll offer them poured in multiple ways. So the beer menu is literally, instead of it being a beer menu of different beers, it's a beer menu of different pours. And so they'll have like 7 different ways that you can order the beer. And some of them are the Czech pours, and some of them are like these Japanese pours. And it's really neat stuff. It's like it just really is exciting to me because it's fresh, it's new, it really emphasizes some of the finer details of really well-made beer, and how to emphasize different things and pull different flavors out and play around with that. And so I've been kind of screwing around with that. You guys probably saw this little setup behind me. I've kind of got this loaner set up here, and I'm exploring how I might be able to. I'm diving into figuring these pours out myself, and maybe I'm hoping to at some point here do a pop-up or two around town here, and maybe see if anybody thinks if this idea is as interesting as I do. So this is my latest total geek out topic. Yeah, and so I guess that's kind of the end of my spiel.
That was the nerdiest last call we've ever had, and I'm here for it.
It's super nerdy.
But at the same time, it is nerdy, but you know what else it is? It's fucking fun. Like,
yeah.
I appreciate the education.
Like,
Oh yeah.
That's the thing too about it, is like, God forbid we do something fun in beer that is also it's something like this. It's not just making a crazy label. It's like showing that you can pour a single style of beer many different ways. And I know not everyone gives a fuck about that, but you know, there are people who do and are open, or at least open to learning about that. And I think that that's so fun and cool.
Two things, Mike. One, you're forgetting that you can sometimes put marshmallows in beer, which is the most amazing thing ever. And secondly, we're not supposed to be commenting on anyone else's last call.
I know.
I'm putting both those things out there because they're both important things to say.
I know, but
I don't mind anybody commenting on it. It's fine.
I was gonna say that was such an eloquent one, but yeah, no, Mike, to your point, it's like Mexican food, right? Tortilla, meat, and cheese in 7 different ways becomes completely different meals.
Yeah. Tim, you wanna?
Yeah, I'll jump into my last call, and Mike, you kind of got a preview to my last call last night. So I had gone out. There is this divey restaurant, bar, whatever. It's technically sort of a college. It's not close enough to the Twin Cities campus of U of M to be a college bar, but it's kind of in that neighborhood where a lot of the college kids live. So it sort of has that. It's definitely a gopher bar type of thing, but they're not a diner, they're a dive bar, but they have breakfast all day and it's great breakfast. And I like to go there over lunch because sometimes I'm just craving an omelet in the middle of the day. I almost don't like eggs for breakfast. I prefer that for lunch because I'm weird. But anyway, so I went in there the other day, yesterday, and I had an omelet. And I'm sitting there and I'm reading the news and I go over and there's this tragic story about how a 13-year-old was accidentally killed by his friend who's 14 years old. They were playing around with a gun that they had found and it actually went off and it killed the kid, and it was breaking my heart and I felt terrible about it. But I left behind a pair of like reading glasses, and then I went in after work and went, hey, I left my glasses behind. I know they're here. I got it back. I'm like, well, I'm here. I might as well have a beer. So I'm sitting there sipping a beer. And these 2 guys come in, sit next to me. I sort of recognize them. They're regulars there or whatever. They just ordered like an appetizer and like a beer each or whatever. And they go to pay it, and the dude is like, holy shit, I forgot my wallet or whatever. And the bartender is like, hey, man, I know you're a regular. Don't worry. I got you. We're all good. You're good for it. Don't worry about it. And that's one of my favorite things about this place, right? Like there's a dude that comes in and always orders like 3 glasses of milk, and they just love him coming in here. It's like one of those things where it's totally ingrained in the neighborhood. They understand that not everyone who's coming in is going to be that like, I'm going to make tips off of this guy. It's more just like a, hey, we are a part of this community. So anyway, I sit there and I see that. I'm like, no, hey, don't worry about it. Let me just, that's nothing. Let me pick that up. And the dude told me, hey, I really kind of needed that. And I was like, yeah, man, I've been having a rough go. Like, my girlfriend broke up with me. I'm not, I'm in a bad spot. And he's like, dude, let me tell you what I'm going through. And so he's the older brother of the 13-year-old that just died. And so he was out with his friend to try to like commiserate and console. And it's literally just the article I'd read when I was there at lunch. I'm now there at happy hour and I'm running into this exact same guy or whatever. And I'm like, man, I feel terrible. I can't say anything or whatever. And the dude's like, no, just, like, can I give you a hug? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so now I'm literally holding this man who's like crying because his little brother died like a day before or whatever. And he's just trying to get out and escape. And he forgot his wallet and now all of this. And it just gave me a lot of perspective that you never know what someone else is going through, ever. Anyone, like I'm the first one to flip someone off in traffic. I'm the first one to be like annoyed when someone's being a dick in public or whatever. You never ever know what someone is going through. You don't know what it is. And that universe gave me, like, for a guy who's a secular humanist, and you can read into that what that is, the universe still felt like it was sending me a message, and it was one of those things that it was just like you just don't know. So what that meant, I don't know what my gesture meant for that man, but his gratitude meant a bunch for me because it taught me a ton about gratitude. It taught me a bunch about like humility. It taught me a bunch about like, loving it. Like, I'm literally standing in a bar hugging a complete stranger while he cries because I bought him, his food because he's going through some shit. Again, this is not about me. It's about like what I learned from him. Just remember that you don't know what anyone else is going through. I wish I knew that a whole lot more. And it was a very, very good, poignant, timely reminder to me to just show patience with the rest of, for a curmudgeonly misanthrope like myself. Have patience. People are going through shit. So, yeah, that's mine on an up note.
I'll jump in really quick. Just simply, by the time that this episode comes out, I'm sure that most of you will have already done this. Talk to a woman in your life and let them know that you love them and that you care for them. Give them a hug, give them a kiss, be there for them, because I'm sure that a lot of them out there would really appreciate the support right now. And because, yeah, they're going through some shit. That's really all that I want to say for that. Kevin?
So I text Mike this earlier, and Joel actually, saying that the thing that was running through my head all day today, George Carlin is one of my heroes. I love George Carlin. Just brilliant. Way ahead of his time. And he has a bit about how the public sucks and fuck hope. It's about politics, and it's about everything that's wrong, the wrongs in society and politics in general. And in general, George Carlin had a perspective, especially later in life, about how he didn't care anymore. He didn't vote, and he just was going to sit back and watch the world burn and make jokes about it. And I was disturbed by that because I loved Carlin, and I thought Carlin was so important to the way we contextualize the world. He had so much to say, and I always felt disconnected from that idea because I wanted to be engaged with the world, and even when I saw things that were wrong, I wanted to stand up and talk about them. I wanted to talk with people that disagreed with me. I wanted to engage with them. And today, as we're recording this, which no one knows this, I'm sure. This is the day after the election, or the day of, well, the day actually of the election, the day we know that the election results were. And it's the first time I really felt symbiotic with that idea, that I wanted to say fuck hope. I really genuinely all day today felt terrible about the first time I had no anticipation of the world getting better. And you guys, as I sat here and listened to Neil's passion about craft beer, I mean, something that is important, but also a little bit trivial, right? We all know that what we care about, these things are not the most important things in the world, but there's things that we can be passionate about and use our intellect and our decency and our respect for other people and how we deal with them. Hearing Tim talk about other people and how they, what they're going through, we can never understand. I enjoyed this. It's the first time I smiled all day. I don't know that I'm hopeful for the future. I don't know if that's ever going to come back. But there are good people in the darkest times. There are still good people that we can appreciate. And I thank all three of you for being on this show. I've enjoyed this immensely, and this was so needed, at least for this one selfish human being.
Yeah.
You're here.
I absolutely needed this too. Neil, do you want to plug your business? Anything in particular?
Sure. I'll plug a couple different things. I'll plug my business. My business is called Craft Quality Solutions. I have some. I do. Well, first of all, with my business, like I said earlier, I do consulting. I do some draft services, mainly custom draft system design and installation. I do kind of help walk people through building their own systems if they don't want to hire somebody to do it on their own. I'm working with a brewer right now on that. And I do a whole bunch of other just miscellaneous stuff under that umbrella. So you can reach me at Neil, Neil, at sellgreatbeer.com, SELLGREATBEER. And also like to plug Cicerone. I spent a lot of time working with Cicerone, and Cicerone is an organization that's been around for a little bit now, and you may or may not know, but it's under new ownership. Dan Imdeck and Jason Pratt, two master Cicerones, bought it earlier this year, and they are quite invested in making sure that this thing stays moving forward and growing and developing and staying current. We've just updated a lot of our syllabi and our first level exam with some new content. And we are doing private trainings for businesses large and small, and providing professional certification for people in the beer business. And so if you're interested in learning more about beer, you can go to cicerone.org and learn a little bit more about what we do. So those are my plugs.
Awesome. Tim?
That's awesome. I didn't know that about Cicerone. We could probably do a lot more on that. I don't plug the place where I work often, but I am going to plug this because I do. We are. I think I mentioned this on the pod that the founder of our company invented the kegerator, the very first kegerator. He was a Pabst employee that went off on his own and literally invented the kegerator. That's what started our company. So we are based as our foundation is in the beer business. We don't do nearly as much, right? We do a lot of like schools and senior living centers and things like that. We still do bars and restaurants and things like that, as well as for full service food service equipment and things like that. But we do probably have a listener of the podcast that is kind of interested in learning more about what it takes to open up a bar, restaurant, those types of things. GoRapids.com is the website that I would send people to so they can learn a little bit more about that. Because it is, we are able to help you go from anything from designing your beer system to working with vendors to get all of that stuff then to actually project managing that entire build out process. And it is something that, one of the things where I've been excited to be able to transition away from the brewing industry, but not be so far away from beer is that is something that we can do. And I still feel like maybe I know what the fuck I'm talking about every once in a while, which is about like 5% of the time. But it is there. So again, GoRapids.com if any of our listeners actually are looking to like do a build out or a consult or anything like that. Even if it's just like design consultant, we're happy to do that.
Kevin?
No plugs.
Yeah,
Only
I didn't really.
Only your hair.
Oh, dang.
Oh,
It's all
hey.
real. I have a giant forehead, but still, it's real.
Yeah, I'm not plugging anything either. Neil, I just want to thank you for taking a couple hours out of your Wednesday evening to talk with us about bar rescue and draft beer and all that wonderful stuff. Yeah, this
It's my
was
pleasure.
Thanks,
a
man.
lot of fun.
Really appreciate it. A lot of education. I got a lot of conversation, and just talking to someone who actually gives a shit about anything just makes me feel really, really good.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a ton of fun.
Big thanks once again to Neil for joining us. It's always awesome to learn stuff about our industry, and that dude knows a lot about draft beer. Literally wrote the book about it, right? Also, thank you for sharing about Bar Rescue. I can't believe we're one of the first people who've ever really asked you about that. I don't care what your thoughts are on reality television. To hear even a little bit about the inner workings of that is fucking fun. So thank you, Neil, for entertaining us with that. Let's get into the stuff that always goes at the end of the episode now. So if you would like to support the show financially, you can check out our website, unitedwedrink.com, and check out the Brands We Love page. We have stuff like Trade Coffee, where you can get coffee delivered to your door. Made in Cookware, some of the best cookware available out there to consumers. I am a big Made in fan. I have many pieces in my house. Flaviar, it is almost the holiday season. Boozy advent calendars, need one? Go there. Get your advent calendar and have a different little booze every day for the month of December. We also have our store, unitedwedrink.com/store, with shirts, buttons, stickers, totes, and all that other fun stuff. And other than that, we'll be back in a couple weeks with another new episode for you. Thank you, Neil. Thank you to all of you for tuning in. Cheers.